Good evening and welcome to the Candidates Forum presented and produced by the League of Women Voters of Northwest Wayne County. My name is Angela Ryan and I am president of the local league. We're pleased to be here for the first time in many years and we hope to be back in the coming years. Tonight we welcome the candidates running for the 4 positions on the Garden City City Council. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization. We do not support or oppose any candidate running for any office. The League does take positions on issues after careful study, so you may see our name attached to an issue that we are advocating for or opposing. The League of Women Voters is where hands-on work to safeguard democracy leads to civic improvement. We invite all of you to join the League and be directly involved in shaping the important issues to keep our community strong, safe, and vibrant. Membership is open to anyone who is 16 years of age or older. So if you're interested in joining this public service organization, please speak to one of the League members tonight, and we do have membership applications. Or you can go to our website and register using PayPal, or print it out and write a check. The League's main mission is to promote political responsibility through informed and active participation in government. One of the ways we do that is by having forums such as this one tonight. The League has also prepared a nonpartisan voter guide for this election that can be found at www.vote411.org. Print copies are also available at the Garden City Library, and on the table outside there's a bookmark, and that has the Vote 411 website on it and the League's website on it. So be sure to pick one of those up as you leave, and they look like this. They say vote on that side and all the other information on the back. Besides the City Council election, Garden City voters will be choosing a mayor and 2 directors for the library board. These races are not contested, but the candidates were still invited to participate in the League's voter guide so that voters can understand their views. Additionally, there are 2 proposals on the Garden City ballot. Voters would choose whether to renew a school millage and whether to support a street improvement bond. If you would like to ask questions of the candidates, and we encourage that you do that, please write your question on a card and hand it to one of the League members, lady in the red jacket, lady in the black top over here, and we will get those questions to the moderator, who will ask as many questions as time allows. Your questions should be brief, to the point, and should not include personal attacks on any candidates. We reserve the right to screen the questions for duplication and clarity. The views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not of the League of Women Voters. We are grateful to the City of Garden City for allowing us to use this facility. Our forum is being videotaped tonight and will be available on our website by October 11. I'd like to introduce you now to our forum moderator, League member Susan Rowe.
Good evening. My name is Susan Rowe, as Angela stated. We're pleased that you could all join us tonight as we hear from the candidates running for the 4 seats on the Garden City City Council. 5 of the 7 candidates that are on the ballot are here tonight. Ms. DeMichelle and Ms. King are unable to participate due to scheduling conflicts. As Angela said, our questions tonight are coming from you, the audience, either through our website or in writing here tonight. Each candidate will be allowed a 1-minute opening statement and a 1-minute response to questions and a 2-minute closing statement. Speaking of the candidates was selected when they came in. They drew numbers. Our first candidate this evening would be Mr. Jones. Our League member, Judy Patrick, who is sitting here in the front seat and the front row, is our timer tonight, and she will be holding up cards for the candidates. For the 1 minute, they'll get a 15-second warning and then the stop. And for the 2-minute closing, they will get a 30-second warning, 15 seconds, and then stop. So we will begin tonight with Mr. Jones and his opening statement.
Thank you. I'm a 46-year resident of Garden City. I've been involved in the community with a number of service and activities. My goals for the City Council would include fiscal responsibility. I think it's very important that we continue to maintain our financial independence. I'd like to work collegially with my colleagues and the department heads, and in terms of trying to reach agreement on plans of action. I think infrastructure is a major concern, especially our roads. I'd like to see us add an ombudsman that would function in trying to attract businesses and streamline the process for obtaining a certificate of occupancy.
Thank you. Ms. Lynch?
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the League for giving all of the candidates an opportunity to answer the questions. My name is Jaylee Lynch, and I'm honored to be your council member. I'm running for re-election to continue to serve the citizens of Garden City. I'm a lifelong resident of Garden City and a graduate of Garden City West High School. My husband Tom and I have been married for 45 years, and our son Jason and his family also live in Garden City. I serve you not only on the City Council, but also as a representative for the Conference of Western Wayne. I've also served in many other capacities, including on special committees, the Michigan Municipal League, SEMCOG, and the Wayne County Transportation Authority. I also represent you as I attend meetings and programs both within Garden City and throughout Wayne County and the state. I'm an educator, a school administrator, and I have 2 master's degrees, 1 in administration. I'm experienced and committed to finding solutions and getting results. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
Hello, I'm Pat McCarge, and along with most of the people sitting up here, I am a lifelong resident of Garden City. I graduated from East. I also had the ability to work for the city most of my life. Most of the years I worked part-time, but I did work full-time for 17 years, retiring as the Director of Parks and Recreation. So I've had the experience of being a homeowner in Garden City and also being a department head. And I've worked on budgets, so the budget procedure is very important to me, and I think that is the main job of a council person, is the budget. And I think we all want to be physically responsible. We just may have different ways of viewing that.
Thank you. And Mr. Jacobs?
Good evening. My name is Mark Jacobs. I'm also a current council member running for re-election. I'm a lifelong member, 55 years in the community. I've also been on with the American Legion Post 396 for 21 years and a lifetime member with the GCYA. I'm big with the youth. I think they're very important, and we've done some good things with them with the arena and the ballparks, and I'd like to continue that. Also, I think our finances, we've got them under control, I believe, and I think I would like to continue doing that. I think we're going in the right direction. There's a few items with the budget, with the roads, and with the medical marijuana issues coming up that I would like to continue working on and trying to get it through with the city. So, thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Earl?
Thank you. My name is Brian Earl. I would also like to thank the League of Women Voters for allowing us the opportunity to attend this forum. I'm the new kid on the block. I'm a 17-year resident of Garden City. My parents bought their first house in Garden City, and that's where I bought my first house, and I hope that my kids buy their first houses in Garden City as well. I'm married with 3 kids. My kids are in the public school system. They attend Douglas, Farmington, and the middle school. My wife, Darcy, is a PTA president for the elementary school. I am a GCYA member. I'm on the board of GCYA. I'm a strong advocate of the youth programs. I am also a police officer. I've been a Wayne County Sheriff Deputy for 26 years, which is where I think that I can lend my expertise. I'm an advocate up at the state. I'm on the state licensing board, and I can help assist in increasing public safety and trying to find funds where funding isn't available in the locals. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our first question for this evening, we will start with Ms. Lynch. What do you see as the most pressing problem in Garden City, and how would you fix it?
I don't know if there's one particular pressing problems. I can think of several. One of them being our roads that need continuous maintenance, and we're not getting enough money from the state in order to kick in and help us do what we really need to be able to do with them, as well as trying to encourage businesses to come into Garden City.
Okay. And Ms. McCarge, the same question?
I believe that the most stressing thing that we have going right now is the infrastructure, but it's not just the roads. It is the land and the buildings that the community is responsible for. And a few years ago, we did not have the finances to do anything. We had to stop, and that was physically responsible. Now that our budget is allowing us, we're starting to work on our parking lots and, other infrastructure within the city. And I think that's extremely important. I don't want to expand our services without really looking at improving our infrastructure that we're responsible for. It's like owning a home and not maintaining it. Well, we own buildings, we own property that we have to maintain, and that is probably one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs, same question.
Okay. I believe the two biggest issues we have are roads and the empty buildings and businesses that we have in the city. The roads, everybody wants a long-term solution, and I believe with this millage, that's what we're pushing for. And the current council, we came together and thought this was the best way to do it, to go forward. It'll be up to the voters, and if they turn it down, then we'll get together if I'm here, and we'll work on another plan. The businesses are a little harder because people don't understand. It's the owners that are setting the rates for most of the buildings, and we can't control that. We can't tell people to rent it for cheaper or sell the building for cheaper. So hopefully we can attract some businesses that can work with the owners, and we can start filling up more buildings. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Yeah, I believe that one of the bigger problems is the cuts to revenue sharing that has affected the funding within the cities. The state has drastically cut the money that comes back to the cities, and that affects all the other issues going on. It affects the ability to pave the roads. It affects the ability to properly pay police and fire, and it affects the ability to encourage the youth programs. And when you have safe roads, and when you have good roads, and when you have the police and fire that have the ability to go out and be proactive instead of reactive, then you can entice the businesses to come in and spend the money. And I think it all comes down to the funding. And it's not funding based off of taxing the citizens. It's being able to go up to Lansing and get that money back from the state to help fund the city.
Thank you. And, I'm sorry, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I would agree with my colleagues that the two biggest challenges we face in Garden City are infrastructure and recruiting businesses. The infrastructure, it's, as Ms. McCarge said, it's not just roads, it's roofs and parking lots and everything else. It's like maintaining your own home. You can't let it go to pot and expect to retain value. And we badly need an influx of income into these programs. In terms of businesses, I think it is very competitive to try to get new businesses here. I think we need somebody designated specifically to work on that, and I think we need to streamline the process for obtaining a certificate of occupancy so somebody can open their doors more efficiently once they do apply for a business and begin having a success.
Thank you. Our second question this evening is, what do you see yourself, if you are elected, able to do to attract new families to the Garden City? And we will start with, let's see, Ms. McCarge.
I believe the best way that we can attract new families, young families to Garden City is actually what we are doing here in Garden City. We are the most friendly, open community in this area. The next weekend, we have the chili cook-off. We have so many community events that we have literally hundreds of volunteers. We have to continue and encourage, involvement in the community. On Facebook, I saw you know, what's going on with Garden City, what's happening? Well, you know what? Get involved with the community, and you'll see how positive it is. That's what we need to continue doing, what we are doing.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I think the younger families coming in, they want to start families, which means we need to make sure our schools are in good shape and also have youth programs for the children. Hockey, we have the hockey arena, we have the baseball fields, we have plenty of soccer, football. That starts with it, and then you get the value of the homes. It's a small community. We don't have really expensive houses, so a young family coming in, they could start a family for not a lot of money. I guess not more in some cities, but it's a small town community, and we need to advertise that and let people know. I think most of the realtors that are around, they do advertise it that way, and I think that's our biggest resources, letting them know the schools and the youth have options.
Okay, Mr. Earl?
Yeah, I would say that this city has a lot of marketable abilities. We need to market this city. We need to get out and entice people to come move here. We need to show that public safety and youth organizations is the backbone of this community. And you entice the families, you entice the businesses. The school system, we need to work directly and maybe even a better job of working with the school system so we can work together to want to bring families in here. I think everybody is looking for a little safe haven to raise their family. Garden City is a great place to do it. We need to let everybody know it's a great place to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, to attract new families, you're talking about younger people with younger children. Obviously, the school system is an integral part of that, and as has already been pointed out, programs, not only the sports programs, but other programs like the dance and programs and the theater programs are good things to encourage people to say, hey, this is someplace where we can have a quality of life, and it's really worth looking strongly at. And that's key. I think the service that we get from the hundreds or thousands of volunteers for all the programs that are run in this city for the community is a definite strong aspect, and we need to promote and advertise that.
Okay. Ms. Lynch?
People want to move here because of things that meet their needs. First, if it's a young couple, they're going to look at affordable housing. They're going to look at the curb appeal. I'd rather call it that than blight, because curb appeal brings people in to look at the houses. They're affordable, it's good housing stock. They look at the programs that are being run, whether they're fun programs for children, whether it's like the chili cook-off, the flea market, the historical society, the library. We have so many programs running in Garden City. So people want something to do when they move into the town. They look at the police and fire departments, and we have outstanding police and fire department in Garden City. And the schools are very, very important, because not only the programs they run, but also the education that they put forward, because we need our schools in Garden City.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
I believe.
Oh, that's right, you started, I'm sorry. Let's see, the next question is, what is your voting record at all elections in the past 5 years? And have you missed voting in any of the elections? And if you could please explain why. And we will start with Mr. Jacobs, yes.
Last 5 years, I do not believe I've missed any votes. I do believe I did one absentee, but other than that, I've been here to vote, and I think it's very important, and I think everybody in the city should get out and vote. I know Ms. Bettis stresses 100%, but we haven't gotten it yet, but hopefully everybody will get out and exercise their right, and thank you.
Okay. Mr. Earl?
Yeah, in 5 years, I don't know that I've missed a vote. I take voting very seriously. I have absentee balloted once or twice. I agree with Councilman that I think sometimes people take voting for granted. I think people don't understand the seriousness of it. You know, the logic that, oh, my voice isn't going to matter because everyone else, no, your voice matters. And I wish we could find a way to get at more people to vote and to understand the importance of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I can go back more than 5 years. I think in 46 years, I might have missed one election. In fact, it was voting that first got me involved in Garden City, because once I became a registered voter, the J.C.'s got a hold of that list and started recruiting people for public service and so forth, and it's never slowed down since then. Voting in local elections is even more important than national or state elections, because it's there that you have the greatest influence on your everyday life. And so I would strongly urge others to not miss an opportunity to express your opinions and get out and vote.
Thank you. Ms. Lynch?
I can go back farther than 5 years also. I'm a regular voter in Garden City in all the elections, whether it's school or local city or even the national and state elections. Voting is both a right and a privilege, and more people need to exercise that opportunity to get out and make a difference. And Mr. Jones is right. It is most important at the local level because you make the biggest impact, but don't think it's not important elsewhere either, because every vote is one more vote for or against whatever the issue is, and it's your right and your privilege to do that.
And Ms. McCarge?
Again, I can go back 20, 30 years probably that I have not missed a vote. It's just something that I was raised to do. But I understand some of the disconnect, and people say, well, I don't know the candidate, I don't know about that, so I'm not going to vote. So what the league is doing today is so important, because I've had people come up to me and say, hey, can you tell me a little bit about who I should vote for? Well, this is how they get that information, and so it's important. So I really urge people, talk to your neighbors. If you know somebody you should be voting for, pass that word along and encourage your neighbor to vote.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question, we will start with Mr. Earl. And the question is, what improvements to Garden City do you hope to see during your term if elected on the city council?
Well, I think one of the biggest improvements is going to happen before, which is the road millage. I strongly believe that if we don't have good roads to drive down, we're not going to entice people to come. The curb appeal, it won't be as good. Obviously, given my experience with law enforcement, I want to work with police and fire both, and they do a fabulous job here. But I want to work with them to find ways to fund, to bring more individuals in to protect our citizens and keep our communities safe without having to be at the burden of the citizens. And there's ways to do that that we can explore, and I've had success with. So I would really want to see a safer environment. And the last thing is the youth programs. We have great youth programs. Councilman Jacobs has done a fabulous job with the youth programs. I'd really like to see more expansion on the youth programs and more access to the fields for our citizens and our kids.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. Mr. Jones?
Yeah,
Yes.
like the rest of my colleagues, I think the roads and infrastructure would be one area that I hope that we make a serious progress towards improving. It's an embarrassment to drive down our roads, and it's a financial disaster for what it does to our vehicles. So that's an important item. I would like to see us start a program that would more actively recruit businesses to our community. I think that there's more that we can do to get them to take a look at us, and more that we can do to help them with the process of opening a business. And so those would be two areas that I would hope to see.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lynch?
I think one of the big improvements is got to be the infrastructure, whether we're talking about water mains, pipelinings, patchwork for the roads, crack fill, total replacement, curb appeal, sidewalk program. All of that is very necessary, because our community was built back in the 1930s, and some of these things have been in place for quite a long time. So it's time to move those things forward. I also think that we need to continue to foster community, community between residents, community between business owners, community between all of us. Because when I grew up, we used to know everyone on our block. We used to talk with everyone on the blocks behind. So we need to do that.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
Well, the roads are definitely an issue that we're going to have to address. And if we don't do it with this millage, then again, we have to go back to the drawing board and find out how we're going to do it. I also believe that we have to continue with the infrastructure, again, within the city. We have to make sure that the roof on the fire department is good, that the doors at Maplewood are functioning, and the air conditioning in the building is working. There's things that we have to keep doing. One of the things I learned several years ago with one of the architects that we worked with, he said that Garden City has done a good job pushing for the sewer, improvements, and we have to continue to do that. It's not glamorous.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I'd like to continue with our long-term planning. Again, with the roads, it's a long-term solution that has been neglected for as long as I've been here. We've never had any kind of plan to keep the roads in good shape. So I think the millage is very important. Again, you get that going and you start attracting businesses. You get businesses and we can maybe streamline our building department a little more and cut a little red tape there. And it's just working together with everybody. Our youth programs, I'd love to see them continue to grow. I know when I was really active at the GCYA, we had 15 hockey teams going out of there, all kids. So that's a big issue, to get the kids back in here and continue with all the youth programs. It's a big issue that we need to get going.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, it's actually split into two parts. For those of you that are the incumbent council members, your question is, what is your attendance records at council meetings in the last year? And then for the non-incumbents, it's how many council meetings have you attended as an observer in the last year? And we will start with Mr. Jones. So you get
I think I've missed a couple of council meetings. Was it the last year?
Yes.
Probably in the last 2 or 3 years. I'm one of the regular people here that's sitting in the back of the room and trying to stay involved and up to date on what's going on in my community. I believe it's very important for me as a candidate to be learning firsthand what's happening at this council table and in our community. So my record for attendance is probably almost as good as most of the council members themselves, and maybe even better than 1 or 2 of them.
Ms. Lynch?
When I look back over my record of attending council meetings, not just the Monday night meetings, but also the special budget meetings and everything else, I am a regular attendee at all the meetings. I've missed once or twice because of illness, but other than that, I'm here. You can count on me for that.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
I'm just trying to think. I maybe have missed once in the last year, and I do try to attend to all of the special meetings. It's important that you attend the meetings to be able to hear your colleagues, to hear people's questions in the audience, because people who come up and question what we're doing, they have a right to do that, and we learn from their comments. So being here and being present is extremely important.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I think in 2 years, I may have missed one meeting here and maybe one as a liaison to the Parks and Rec Department. I've also tried to make other meetings, like the DDA meetings. Being new to the council, I wanted to learn as much as I could about other departments and other areas. So special events, parades, the chili cook-off, events like that. I try to make every event that I can, and that works out really well at home sometimes, but, you know, that's the way I feel I can learn more, is to attend as much as I can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Earl.
Well, this year I made a couple of the council meetings, and the reason was I was on the board of a nonprofit organization that met at the same time. So then I would have to catch up with the meetings online. So, which I believe that is a great service, because if you can't make the meetings, you can at least stay informed. And I do try to make special events and other special meetings as well. If you're not involved, if you're not active, then you're not really being productive for the citizen, I don't believe.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lynch, almost all communities are touched in some shape or form by the opioid epidemic. What is or what should Garden City be doing to minimize this crisis?
I think Garden City is working on that program right now. We have a meeting at Maplewood coming up, and unfortunately, I don't have the date, but I know it's really soon, that is going to address the opioid problem. That's a hard one because so many people are getting these drugs prescribed to them by doctors. So we need to address doctors as well in order to take control of the problem. But I know our first responders, they're working towards that, and we're addressing it as a community, getting the knowledge out.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
Garden City has the Family Resource Center. Some of the fight against opioid use begins at a much younger age before they start thinking of using opiates. And we've been very fortunate in our community that Monica Fulton has been able to obtain quite a large amount of grant money, that she has fostered programs to help families fight drug use, fight the things that might make a child go in that direction. So we're very, very strong. I think that our resource center here in Garden City is probably the best in southeast Michigan.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs?
I hate to echo Ms. McCarge, but our Family Resource Center is great, and like she said, they hold meetings, they have youth meetings that start at younger ages. So they kind of cut down some of the trouble that they might get into at a later age that might draw them into the opiates. I think they do a wonderful job with the lack of cut or budget that they have there because of state funding and that, but Monica does a great job with going out and getting grants, so we can do that for the kids. And I think it does start at an early age, getting knowledge out, starts in the schools with the knowledge, and it just goes on from there. So the more intelligence we can bring them, or knowledge, I think that's the way to start it, and then it just continues on.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Well, the sad reality of the opioid issue is it starts young in the schools. Junior high, it's, you know, you hear prevalent stories about the issues. It affects the families and it affects the communities, both with crime and transient people coming in to purchase if it's being sold here. Part of the issue, we do a great job of with the Resource Center and educating the youth to the problems. Part of the problem is you have to have a very proactive ability for law enforcement to be able to address it, and we really don't have the individuals that we can just cut loose and address that. The one way to look into working on it is to get into a consortium with the other cities, to local cities to address this issue. Another way would be to get with the federal government, and there's funding that you can bring people on just to address these kind of issues.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, the problems that we have, I think, in this country is that too many people, when they experience a little bit of pain, want to take the quickest and easiest way to ease that pain, and they get on these opioids and they don't want to get off of them. I, again, would support the idea that we are doing a very good job, I think, at the Family Resource Center, as well as our senior director bringing in programs specifically for seniors who may have pain issues that they're dealing with. The law enforcement does what they can, but I think it starts with education of our citizens if we're going to really make a dent in this.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, do you support the road millage on the November ballot? Why or why not? And we will start with Ms. McCarge.
Excuse me. I do support the road millage, and it was after several meetings that the council had debating several different ways we could handle it, and there were several. We went with the $50 million millage over the course of 20 years to, pay for it, 10 years to do the roads. One, we felt that people would be more willing to support the millage knowing that at the end of the time, 75% of our roads will be dealt with in some fashion. They will either be rebuilt or they will be patched. It's easier to say, hey, your road, my road, all are going to get attention. So we all need to pay into this. So I am in support of this.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, as I said before, I'm support it. I believe we haven't had a long-term solution or situation where we can fix things over the long haul. And I think this plan puts in place in 20 years, we'll have a lot of the roads done. It can continue from there. We've never had a plan to fix everything, and like I say, the 50 years I've been here, the roads have deteriorated faster than we've been able to fix them. So I think this is much needed, and going forward in 20 years, we have a plan in place to keep it going.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Yeah, I do support the road millage. As a father, I've watched my kids bounce up and down in their school bus as they drive down Moeller and Craig. It benefits the city by bringing in prospective home buyers. When you drive down a road, you're less likely to buy a house if you have to dodge potholes all the way down the street. I think it's very important. I think it's a good thing that the voters, they ultimately get to decide whether we support it or not. Whether you support it or not, it's the voters that get to decide. It's in their hands, and I hope that it passes. I think there's way more benefits, and what people need to understand is it's a bond issue. People can't take that money and just spend it somewhere else. It's a dedicated bond, so it has to be put into the road system.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I too support the road millage. In my 46 years of living on Donnelly Street, they've resurfaced it once. That's long since worn out. I believe it will add property value and curb appeal to our homes. I think that we need a long-term plan that will allow us to not only fix the roads, but keep them in a good operating condition. And if we can take care of 75% of the roads right now, and with this bond issue, the rest of the roads we're in pretty good shape because they've gotten their individual attention, and I think our community would be a much more attractive place to live, and we would all appreciate that.
And Ms. Lynch?
It's hard to take aging roads and make a big-time fix towards them all at the same time. So that's why I support a community-wide effort for this long-term solution. Once we get the roads to the point that they need to be, then it'll be much easier to be able to take them a couple at a time and keep them in proper repair. The voters are going to make this decision, And if by chance it doesn't pass, I can guarantee council will be back with another idea for another long-term solution because it's very necessary. That's the only way we're going to get our roads fixed in Garden City, more than 1/2 mile every year.
Thank you. And Ms. McCarge?
I thought I answered.
No, you answered.
Yeah, I
I'm sorry, we
started.
started with you. I'm sorry. Okay, our next question, we will begin with Mr. Jacobs. And the question is from a resident here. They have a concern about the lack of attention to blight in Garden City. What would be your plans on addressing and eliminating this issue?
Well, I think we have a plan in place with the stabilization plan where we've taken foreclosed homes and we've sold them to developers that have turned them around, and not for a big profit, but just to clean up the blight in the street or in the neighborhoods. I believe our DPS does a good job, our enforcement officer, ordinance, he goes around, and when there is blight, they address it. I think it's hard to do. We've cut staff with DPS as well as every other department, but they do a great job with keeping up. And when our ordinance officer does see the blight, they address it as quickly as possible. Obviously, there's legal situations that they have to go through, but again, I think our stabilization plan and our DPS are doing a great job with taking care of the blight.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
I would agree, the DPS, I think they do a really good job, especially for the cuts and funding that they've had to endure. And it's not because of the city, it's because of the revenue sharing. But obviously, nobody wants blight in their neighborhood. It affects home values. You don't want to come home and sit out in the front yard and have to look at a house that's overgrown and not being taken care of. I think the ordinance officer does do a good job. I think he's overwhelmed. I think we could get him some more support. And I'm sure that if there is a blight issue and it's called into the city, I would assume that it's going to be addressed rather quickly. So I think it's something that every citizen should keep an eye out for. And it's not just the houses. There's, it's businesses. Businesses can have blight issues as well. So it's something that we, as the city, should take seriously and help to address.
Thank you, Mr. Earl. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I think we have a proactive program to deal with blight. I know our mayor considers that a strong issue. He's gone on weekly drives through the community with our city manager to try to identify things. A lot of difficulties come up in that we run into legal problems. I think Mr. Jacobs pointed out that, yeah, there's a home or a business or a property that needs attention, but there's challenges in the courts and so forth that prevent us from enforcing and foreclosing on some of these things. And so we're doing an active job with what we can, but sometimes some of those conditions warrant a little more patience and are a little bit more out of our control.
And Ms. Lynch?
I agree with everyone up here. We are taking an active approach to blight. We have our mayor and our city manager making weekly trips in different sections of the community looking for those houses. We have our ordinance officer going out and going after the houses that we bring forward. I think the blight that we're maybe not seeing as much, because the obvious blight when you drive by you see, but a lot of times there are people that are complaining about people's backyards. Something's going on in the backyard. Our police department just can't walk into somebody's backyard. You wouldn't want them to do that to your house. They can't do it to someone else's house. So what we need is active citizenry that will make those telephone calls to our ordinance officer and give him a clue where this is so that he can go out and take care of it. We need pride and ownership.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
I believe that we are, addressing some of the blight, but this is the biggest complaints I get, not about the roads, but about the blight. And people don't know what to do. They call me, and then I say, call DPS, call the city. They're reluctant to do that. They're reluctant to do that. So we need to educate people what they need to do if they have a complaint. And then once they make the complaint, what should the city do as far as communicating the action? Even if it is, listen, this is in the court, or, we hope to get out there next week. People want action. When it's something next door, they want to know what's going on. So I think we just need to educate people on how to handle complaints.
Thank you. Our next question, we will begin with Mr. Jones. I'm sorry, Mr. Earl. We start with Mr. Earl. What do you see as the role for the public library in the city of Garden City?
I think it's a place to get our kids out of their Game Boys and out of their TVs and into knowledge. All three of our kids have public library cards, and they go up and check out books. They don't go up there to sit on the computer. They go up there to check out books and read. I think it's a place that takes the kids and expands their minds. I think it's a great program. I think it's great that we have a public library. I know that they're trying to build a new facility. When we go in there, I do see quite a few people up there. It's a nice little local meeting spot sometimes. But the biggest thing is taking these kids off of YouTube and putting them back into reading actual books. And they have a sharing program as well, where you can share online and read books that way as well. So,
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
The library, I think, does a wonderful job of trying to activate programs that appeal to all classes of citizens, not only the youth, but the rest of the citizens as well. Our youth librarian, Lisa, is fantastic. She's one of the most creative people I've ever had a chance to deal with. Our head librarian, Mr. Lentz, very actively tries to recruit ideas and programs that involve people. I know we announce about a half a dozen of their programs on our podcast every week that they've got going on. So the biggest difficulties we have is we need a bigger facility, because there's so much more they could do if they just had more room to do it. But they do a fantastic job with what they have.
Thank you. Ms. Lynch?
The role of the library is to activate the people within the community. The library has so many different genres of books, and that means that's how many different interests people in the community have. So they reach out to people. They might have Lego building for the young children. They might rent videos to families. You might read there. You might do your homework there. There's so many different things that a library can do, and I believe the Garden City Library strives to do all of those things and then some.
Thank you. And Ms. McCarge?
Years ago, when they had to make the drastic cuts that made the library have to go to Maplewood, and at one point, we did not believe that the library was even going to exist at all in Garden City until the people passed the millage to support it. At that time, there were major cuts in the recreation program. What I'm seeing with the library now, not only are they bringing kids into the library to read, and adults and the seniors, but they're kind of filling the gap with some of the programs that the recreation department used to do. And so they're still bringing that sense of community. And so the library is not just a place to read a book. It's a place to live in your community.
Thank you. And Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I believe it's a valuable asset. I think it's been proven. We've just, with Mr. Lentz in the high school, they just made some little free libraries that they've posted at Rotary Park, and they want to go to a couple other areas and put them out. And they put books in that people can go and share. And it's not a sign-in or sign-out or a late fee. So I believe there's a need for it. I believe hopefully in some near future we get the funding and we can build our own library. I think it does get the kids activated in their brain. It gets them thinking. I did a couple readings with the small kids in the school libraries, and they're interested. They want to look, and they want to listen, and they want to learn. And that gets it going at an early age to where they have somewhere to go, and they look forward to going and getting books and reading and learning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones, the next question is, how do you see the school district and the city partnering in the future?
In some ways, we have the greatest advantage of almost any community around in that our school district and our city boundaries are coterminous. So we're not talking about several different school districts within Garden City or several different cities within our Garden City School District. So we have the natural advantage that anything that we can do that promotes the schools or promotes the city, they should be self-supportive in the sense that they would help both. I think we need great communication between our city officials and the school officials, and I think we have that. Mr. Fisher has done an excellent job as superintendent. I think he's very receptive and open to working together with us on programs. Just the chances that we've had to develop the theater program has just been marvelous, to be able to go back to O'Leary Auditorium and enjoy a great play.
Thank you. Ms. Lynch?
I think the city works well with the schools, and the schools work well with the city. Each one has its own programs that it runs, but it always includes, you go to a football game, they include our first responders, our police officers, not just in a formal role, but there's also others that are there at the game just because they want to be there. When we have our Veterans Day ceremony, we invite children from the schools over to the Veterans Day ceremony so they get involved with the community. They understand the importance of veterans and what they do for our community. We've gone out and had meetings together for the betterment of the city, for the betterment of the schools. We're always looking for ways that we can work with the schools and the schools working with us.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
I do believe that we have always worked together with the schools as much as possible, but people have to also realize that the school government and the city government are really two separate entities, because people come up to me and say, well, they should be doing this and this, or they shouldn't be doing this or this. The council, the city council does not dictate what the school does. It's a separate government entity. And if you would like to have more input with the schools, then you need to go to the school board meetings. If you want more input with the city council or the city government, you come to city council. But we really do have a good relationship between the schools and the city. The school and the city and the people in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I believe we have a great working relationship with the school district also. I know, like, for our Santa Land Parade, we use their parking lot, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but I know there's certain probably districts that don't allow certain things like that because it's school property, it's not city property. We run shuttle services to different events from there. We also include all their students, like the veterans ceremony at O'Leary Auditorium. We get the junior ROTC involved. We get we usually have for all events a national anthem singer we try to get from the schools. We bring up the student of the month a lot of times to the council to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, and that's all coordination with the school district. And again, I think that's a good thing, and it's good for the schools and the city.
Thank you. Mr. Earl?
Yeah, first I want to say I think we have an incredible school district, a school program. All three of my kids, like I said, are into public schools, and they've had a great education. I haven't had any problems. I do see a good working relationship between the school and the city. I've attended some of these events, and I do see it. The one thing that I would like to see, though, going forward is if the road millage passes, is we work a little bit better with the school district and the busing program to make sure they understand which roads are affected at what times. There was a little problem at the beginning of school with Craig. We worked through it, but I would like to see a little tighter communication to help facilitate a smooth transportation for the kids getting to school.
Okay. All right, the next question will begin with Ms. Lynch, and that is, do you support the school millage proposal that's on the ballot? Why or why not?
I was going to say, the school millage proposal is simply a renewal. There's no reason not to support a renewal because it will keep things moving forward as they have their long-term plans planned out. It's not going to cost anybody any more money than what they've already paid in the past years. It's simply a renewal, so I, of course, support it.
Okay. And Ms. McCarge?
I definitely support the school millage. Again, it's a renewal, but again, the schools are having the same difficulties that the city does as far as, you know, the money that we get from the state, either the school or the community. And without these millages, we can't move forward. And Garden City residents have been absolutely wonderful supporting their school and their community.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, I support it pretty much for the same reasons. It's a renewal, and it's not costing the citizens any more money. It's helps the schools out tremendously, and the way they're going with the test scores, I believe they're all going up in Garden City. This is just gonna give them another resource, another tool to help keep that going forward. So yes, I do support it.
Thank you. And Mr. Earl?
I absolutely support it. I support the renewal. Like I said, the school district does a great job. Strong schools brings in young families, and so there's no reason not to support it.
Thank you. And Mr. Jones?
I too would support it. As everybody said, it's a renewal. It's not even a homestead property tax. So people who are living in homes and thinking, gee whiz, now there's gonna be another 18 mills I'm gonna have to pay on my property. No, it's not on your property, and it is a renewal. So for all of those reasons, plus the fact that the schools need that money to operate and maintain the quality education that they're providing, I absolutely support it.
Thank you. Our next question begins with Ms. McCarge, and it is, do you think that we need more police and firemen? If so, how will we pay for them?
I believe we are right on the cusp of just having enough people. Could we use more? Absolutely, and that's where the debate is. Where is the money going to come from? Right now, we have a safety millage, and without that safety millage, we wouldn't even have the police and fire that we do now. So I think we need to move forward and always constantly be looking at our staffing. I always hear, okay, we need someone in this area, we need someone in this area. And I don't disagree, I think we do. But I also think we have to pull it in and say, this is our budget, and where is that money going to come from? Because we have to have a balanced budget. So I believe right now we are at the minimum of staffing that we need.
And Mr. Jacobs?
I absolutely believe we need more of each staffing levels. I remember years ago, we had 50 police officers and a lot more fire department personnel. And through, obviously, budgets and everything else, we've lost a lot. We're starting to come back with safer grants that are helping with our fire department, that eventually the citizens, it'll come out of our budget, but I believe it's needed. There was a time when we couldn't send 2 firefighters into a fire because we didn't have enough staff. So I believe we need to do it. I know we've been hiring a couple police officers because we've had a lot of retirements, and hopefully we can get back up to the levels that we need to get to. And again, there's grants out there, and we need to, if we can't get the grants, we need to get it into the budget somehow.
Okay, Mr. Earl?
Absolutely, we need more police and fire. How great would it be to have police where you can assign somebody to walk around the businesses and walk around the neighborhoods, community policing, instead of just reacting to crimes that have already happened? And fire, you can never cut short fire. The training it goes into the budget as well. There's ways to do it other than just tax to citizens and increase the budget. Working with the state to try to, working with the SAFER grants and working with the feds on some of the COPS grants, you can try to entice more people in here by increasing the benefit packages and the pay. But there's also, we need to be up in Lansing hammering these legislators up there to try to increase revenues coming back to the city so we can pay for it and so the citizens don't have to pay for what is actually theirs.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
I too think that we need more police and fire. We can always use improvement in those areas. We're operating, as I think Ms. McCarge said, at the bare minimum to do a good job. But to do an even better job, we would need to put more boots on the ground. To do that, if we can't get additional help from Lansing or grant money to do it, I think it's going to be a tough stretch to add very many people out of our current budget. We're in a lot better financial situation than we were. We have a nice fund equity, but we can't use it all up to hire 2 or 3 more people. And so it's a big challenge, but I think we can do stuff in ways of grants and lobbying Lansing to try to improve the funding we have available for that.
Okay, and Ms. Lynch?
I agree with my colleagues. There was a time in Garden City where we did go back and cut staffing to the bare minimum because we did not want to have the same problems Detroit and other communities had at the time. But since we've been getting better year after year, we've added more police, we've added more fire, we've used the SAFER grant to help us get those firemen over at the station. We need to do everything we can to continually add another firefighter, another police officer. But again, with the budget the way it is, we're not still at the point that we're whole, that we can just afford to take it out of our budget. We need to look for the alternate plans in order to be able to get our funding.
Okay. I would just like to state the audience, we have 2 more questions before I start the closing. If anyone here does have a question they would like asked, if you could please get a card from either Paula or Lynn, I'd appreciate it, and get them up here to us. Thank you. Okay, now we start with Mr. Jacobs. And if you could please elaborate on your community involvement in the past couple of years in the community, and also state why you feel you're qualified for this position to continue.
Okay. In the last couple years, I've been involved with the Garden City Youth Athletic Association. I've worked to get a new bathroom over at Moeller Field for the kids and for the parents and grandparents. Also at the arena, I'm very active over there as far as working with Parks and Rec and also working with our hockey league. I used to run the over 30 hockey league, so I was really active in there. And years ago, I was active with the youth hockey in there. Other community events, I've been involved with the chili cook-off for the last 4 or 5 years. I think we've had a team in there. And I try to make, again, as many senior events, I try to get to all of those. I try to make all the events that I can within the Spooktacular, all the events that I can within the community.
Okay. Mr. Earl.
My biggest involvement in the community has been being on the board of the Garden City Youth Athletic Association. I've coached both house and travel baseball teams, and it's been, there's nothing better than getting away from work and getting on the ball field with the kids for a little while. We've reached out, we have thousands of kids that come into our program every year, and I would love to see that grow and have the opportunity to help that grow. The other thing that I have done, I'm on an organization called the ARC, which we advocate for individuals with developmental disabilities, and it does reach into the Garden City area. So it's one of the things that I've been involved in for a long time. It's a great program. And also being involved with the schools, other than attending community events that we go to, try to go to as many as we can, but being involved with the schools, my wife being into PTA, and I attend all those meetings and help her out as much as I can.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jones?
Yeah, well, currently, I'm a member of the Garden City Kiwanis. In fact, I have been for like 19 years and serve as treasurer, and they'll never stop electing me, so I guess I'm in there till I die. And I'm a member of the Commission on Aging, so I'm active in the programs that they do for the seniors. I'm a volunteer driver for the Fish Dial-A-Ride to take seniors to doctor's appointments and so forth. I'm a co-host on the Community Chat podcast, so I keep in my ear to the groundstone on what's going on there. We've had, in fact, two of these people sitting at this table as recent guests on our program. I've always been involved in the community. I attend all the council meetings to try to stay active and informed. So I think that my record speaks for itself. I go to the chili cook-off, the music in the park, the trunk or treat, and many others.
Ms. Lynch?
I've always been involved in the community. As a Kiwanian, all the projects that Kiwanis runs, I've been involved in most of those projects. I go to the programs that go on in the community, the chili cook-off. I'm not just a participant there, but sometimes I'll help judge the chili. I'll help clean up afterwards. I'll help set up. I do things like that on a regular basis throughout the community. I work with the seniors. I attend their programs. I've helped put on programs. I've helped with the library programs. I've helped when we had the really active Parks and Rec through Maplewood. I worked on programs there for the youth. So I've always been a very active person within the community.
Thank you. Ms. McCarge?
Well, I started out my career in Garden City as a swim coach. So I coached swimming for 20 years, so I was very active with the kids and their kids and their kids. I've been in Kiwanis for 20 years, and that means we're involved in almost all the community events, chili cook-off, parade. I'm also involved with the Garden City Garden Club and the Master Gardener program here in Wayne County. And as a member, I've been renovating the butterfly garden in City Park, updating some of the landscaping over at the fire department, and planting flowers at the Commons. So I've been very, very busy with the community, and I love it. And I would not stop that ever.
Okay, thank you. Our last question then is, and this, we will be starting with Mr. Earl. Do you have any future political aspirations?
My aspiration to get on the city council really isn't surrounding around a future political aspiration. It's just that I wanted to be involved and be able to shape the city that I live in, so my children can grow up and live in it as well. I don't really have dreams of becoming a politician anywhere in Lansing, in the county, definitely not up in the United States level. So no, this is about the far-reaching aspects of where I want to go.
Thank you. Mr. Jones?
Well, I've thought about running for county or statewide offices in maybe 20 years, but I think at 95, I might be hard to be elected. So no, my goals are to stay active in Garden City. I don't intend to look beyond those boundaries.
Okay, Ms. Lynch?
Garden City is my home. I wanted to be active on the Garden City Council. That's where I've been, and that's where I stay. So no.
Thank you. And Ms. McCarge?
No, this is being on the council is where I want to stay, and I have no further desire to go any further. And I've also really tried to keep whatever I do in my community here, right here in Garden City.
And Mr. Jacobs?
No, I don't. Again, a lifelong resident of Garden City. I couldn't even move out of Garden City. Grew up here, went to St. Raphael's for 8 years, and this is where I want to stay and help. And I know it's a small community, so everywhere you go, you run into everybody, and you talk to people, and you know people, and it's what I like. So, no, I'm not going anywhere else higher.
Okay, well, thank you. And that wraps up our questions from the audience. So we will now start our closing statements, which are 2 minutes. And we will start, as I stated, with reverse order. So, Mr. Earl, you get to go first.
All right, thank you. And again, thank you for hosting this forum. I just want to say, I'm not running for city council because I think the city council members, the active council members, do a horrible job. In fact, I commend them for stepping up and being civic leaders. The reason I'm running is I think that I can provide something that no one else has the expertise to provide, and that is to help bolster the fire and police in the city of Garden City. I sit on the state licensing board. It's a governor-appointed position. I've participated in studies as to why we can't hire and what we have to do to be able to hire. We know that there's a big rift between some aspects of law enforcement and some citizens. My goal is to help close that rift. Right now, the state of Michigan has 4,000 less police officers in it than it did 10 years ago. The city of Inkster, which is to the south of us, went from 62 full-time officers to 18. So Garden City is a safe community. The current law enforcement and the current firefighters, they do an amazing job. I'm going to be able to help them get the training they need to be able to increase funding for them. That's my goal. I want my kids to grow up, like I said, and want to purchase their first house here. I want them to feel safe here. And the other thing I really want to work on is the youth programs. It's something that I'm passionate about. It's something that I've been involved with. I've seen some of our youth turned away and not be able to play because they didn't have access to some of the areas because we have had to put those areas out for adult leagues. I want to change that. I want our kids to have, the kids should never be turned away if they want to go outside and play. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Jacobs?
Yes, like I said before, I'm a lifelong resident here, and I ran 2 years ago, and I ran on the platform that I was a non-political politician, and I still hold true to that. I know you always hear about doing it for other reasons, and my only motivation is for the city. And I think we've made a lot of good progress in 2 years. Not that it was bad before, recently before that, but I think we've made a lot of progress in the last 2 years, and I'd like to continue with that progress going forward. I think some of my bigger assets are I work well with everybody. I can get along with the police department, the fire department, DPS, our colleagues on the council now. We don't have big fights and blowouts, and I know that dismays some people that are used to it in the past that have, must-see TV, but we get together and we communicate well, and I think that's a big asset going forward. I want to keep fiscally responsible. I believe we've done that the last 2 years, even though we've made some big improvements. We're working on the ice arena again. We've done parking lots. We're going to do parking lots. If we get the road millage, we're going to do that, and it's all without really raising taxes other than the road millage if the voters want that. But it's not coming out of the general budget. So that's where I want to go. I want to continue working with the youth, getting those items set and continue growing them and continue working with everybody else and with the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Picard?
The last 4 years that I've been on council have been interesting and certainly an education for myself. Some of the times have been rough. Some of our decisions have been difficult, but I'm also very proud of some of the decisions and some of the votes that I've made. The Neighborhood Stabilization Program, we have homes now that have been renovated and are up to code and are definitely an asset to our community. And that was a program that we really took a lot of heat on, but it was the right thing to do, and we as a council were able to do that. I also believe that the work that I've been able to do on the Wayne County Community Development Block Grant Commission, the commission was able to convince the county not to take funds from our community so that we can continue doing some of the housing rehab that we've been doing the last few years. And it was a fight, and I was very pleased that I could be part of that program. The budget, that is our main concern as council, is the budget. And we have to be responsible. And absolutely, I would love to hire 20 more people in the city clerk's office, the fire department, the police department. But we have to have the funding to do that. And if we can find grants to do that, wonderful. I definitely would love that to happen. But being fiscally responsible is the job of the city council.
Ms. Lynch.
Again, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for putting on this forum and for everyone that's here and watching it on TV for wanting to know more about the people running for council. I've been honored to be your council member, and I'm running for re-election again because I want to serve the citizens of Garden City. That's a passion of mine. I love to serve my community. I'm a lifelong resident, a community volunteer, an educator, and a school administrator. I'm analytical, I do my research, and I use my resources. I'm a good listener and a good problem solver. I also bring with me 18 years of dedicated service to our community. I will continue to serve our community and ask those tough questions. I'll continue to provide quality services to our residents, continue to ensure that every tax dollar is spent effectively and efficiently and in the best interest of our city. I have the knowledge and the experience necessary to make those decisions, and I hope I have your trust to continue to make those decisions. And I'm going to ask for your vote on November 7th because I would like to be reelected to council. By serving as your council member, I'm making a personal commitment to you to keep Garden City a great place to call home.
Thank you. And Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I have several priorities some of which I highlighted in my opening statement. I think it's very important that we react fiscally responsible and ensure that Garden City remains financially independent. I would like to work collegially with the mayor, city council members, city managers, city employees to maintain quality city services and police, fire, DPS, City Hall, Maplewood Center, Parks and Recreation to ensure that the quality of life that makes Garden City a great place to live and raise a family continues. To address the infrastructure concerns, especially the roads, that they will become an addition to property values and quality of life that will make Garden City an attractive place to live and to work. To create a business ombudsman whose role would be to attract businesses to Garden City and streamline the process needed for obtaining a certificate of occupancy. To promote Garden City and Garden City events to ensure participation, enjoyment, and involvement in those events. To support community organizations and service clubs like the GCYAA, Commission on Aging, the Goodfellows, the Rotary, the Lions, and Kiwanis for all that they and their volunteers do to help individuals and improve the quality of life for our entire community. And encourage our city officials to work closely with county, state, and federal governments to obtain grant funding to supplement our community resources. I too would like to thank the League of Women Voters for offering us this forum so that people can express their views and citizens can get to know us. And I also will ask for your support on November 7th. I promise to always do my best for Garden City and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. We'd like to thank the candidates who participated in tonight's forum for the Garden City City Council. We are grateful to the City of Garden City for allowing us to use their council chambers for the forum this evening. The forum has been videotaped and can soon be viewed on the League's website at lwvnorthwestwayne.org. We also thank all of you in the audience for attending the forum to learn about your candidates. All of these candidates were also invited to participate in the League of Women Voters Voter Guide. It's a publication that you can access online by visiting vote411.org, or you can pick up a printed copy from the library. Election Day is November 7th, and the polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. You will be asked for a picture ID when you go to vote, but if you do not have a picture ID or don't have it with you, you can still vote by signing an affidavit of identity. This concludes our forum for this evening, and I personally like to say thank you to all of you for coming, and it's always nice to come to these and see the quality of people that voters have to select to sit and represent them on their city councils. To me, the government that you have is the government that you vote for and you choose to have. So I think you'll have a hard choice, I believe, when you go to the polls on November the 7th. And that's just a personal comment, not the League's. So thank you again, and have a good evening.
Thank you.